grounds of the former St. Mary's Indian Residential School outside of Mission, BC, close to 100 family members, leaders, and supporters gather to hear the results of Phase 1 of the investigation into 3 residential schools and the Kokolitsa Indian Hospital. 158 children are known to have died at the locations, and their graves are marked, but anomalies have also been found on those sites. Dave Sheppy is head of the research team. He says combing through records and recording oral history, they uncovered some very disturbing information.
We heard of the secretive burial of children who died and the forced burial of children by other children. We learned of the secretive burial of babies.
In 1948, a fire destroyed the old school and a new school was built, which still stands today. Sheppy says St. Mary's had a very dark reputation, well known amongst students.
We were told that the St. Mary's old school was characterized as a place of punishment and starvation, and the new school a place of pedophilia.
St. Mary's was opened in 1863 and was closed in 1984. Over 70 First Nations from across BC had children who attended during that time.
We were told of atrocities, including physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual abuse, of capital punishment, of the intentional confinement and exposure of children to diseases as forms of punishment, of forced and exploited child labor to the point of consumption. We were told of malnutrition and starvation, of having to choose between eating green, spoiled bologna or not eating at all.
Mike Kelly is 77 years old now, but when he was 5 years old, he was brought to St. Mary's. He says when he was 10, his close friend Bradley died while at the school, and that he was the last person to see him alive.
They said he was sick, but when I was playing with him the night before, it seemed like there was nothing wrong with him. Yeah. So that's what troubled me, was they said he was sick, and I said no, he wasn't, because I was playing with him marbles, eh? And then the night bell rang, so we had to zoom up to bed. The next morning we found out, I didn't find out till later that he was dead, eh?
Kelly says that loss has stayed with him his whole life, and he blamed himself until today, when he was finally able to let his friend go. And for others here listening to the horrors of what happened, heartbreak is evident on everyone's faces as more disturbing details were revealed.
We heard of terrible implications that need further work to further understand, including a story of firemen responding to a fire at the old St. Mary's Girls' Dormitory and finding the remains of fetuses in the walls. And, as is being told in experiences at other institutions, that furnaces were used for cremation purposes.
With 2 to 4% of each location searched by ground-penetrating radar so far, unmarked anomalies were detected, but because it's still early on in the investigation, an exact number was not released as of yet. For years, many stories were told by former students about the horrific abuses that took place here at St. Mary's Indian Residential School. Now that Phase 1 is complete, the research team says they will continue to search for more anomalies. Tina House, APTN National News, Mission.
The National Indian Residential School Crisis Line is available for survivors and others who might need support. That number is 1-866-925-4419.